My Time Podcast with Asher Tchoua.
Hey, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Nehemiah.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me. This is a honor and a privilege.
Thank you. Um, one thing, I know we were just chatting a little bit offline, but
Yeah.
to kind of let the people know who you are, one of the two questions I'm asking this year is, who do you say you are?
Who do I say I am? Wow. Who do I say I am? So I would say that I am a creative inspirer. I like to say that. Because those are two things that are pretty much at the core of, what I'm drawn to, right? Being creative. And by creative mean the methods in which things are communicated, the methods and the forms in which things are presented, are viewed, or thought about has always really got me. And I've always gravitated toward that in terms of what I do creatively. And then inspiration, right? I think there's something inspiring about inspiring. It's a saying I always give. And that is really how I get my fuel, when I can see that people are encouraged to become the best version of themselves. It encourages me to become the best version of myself. And it sort of forms that symbiotic loop. So a creative inspirer is what I'll go with. But yeah, of course, I'm an engineer by trade and business owner, entrepreneur, and all those things. Father, husband.
Awesome. It's funny. When I was thinking of how we met, we were just talking about the prayer line, and it's like
Yeah.
I met you, or I learned about you through BK doing this interview series. Like every Thursday, he would um, basically do a feature for about an hour where you highlight one of the men on the prayer line and kind of
Hmm.
give us like a nice background researched up on this is who this person is, here's what they do. And I just found it cool to meet someone that's in the similar space as me. Like I studied structural engineering
Yeah.
going to college, but I didn't go the route of continuing on to graduate school and getting the master's to get the title of doctor as yourself. But I'm curious to know what got you into engineering or civil engineering for that matter, and then leading all the way up to structures and doing what you do now on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first, let me say, I remember you on the prayer line before I did that
Mm.
spotlight, asking people if they had any ideas on how to start a podcast. Like, I literally remember you asking that. And
Oh
so
wow.
here's the podcast that you actually have started and been doing for a while now that I'm honored to be a guest on. But I remember, how like a lot of us can sit on mute and just kind of listen
Yeah.
to people talk. Like, I vividly remember you, Asher, saying, yeah, I'm trying to start a podcast. Here's what I'm looking to do. And anybody have any ideas about how to start? And, people were giving their advice. So it's just nice to see that you're actually doing, you applied that. And that was a while ago. So
Yeah,
I just wanted to let you know that. I don't know if you knew
man.
that.
I
Um,
appreciate that. It'll be 2 years in October.
yeah, man. So
Man.
it had to be over 2 years ago that happened.
Yeah.
So but yeah, engineering. So for me, engineering, I never knew what it was literally growing up until about my 11th grade year. I heard the word before. My dad actually studied engineering, but didn't finish his degree originally because he went into another career field. And when I asked him, or when he asked me rather, what I wanted to do when I grow up, he suggested it to me. And that was the first time I actually began to think about it. And when your parents suggest something to you, sometimes it's like, you always want me to do something, yeah. But I was actually fortunate enough to that summer, 11th grade in high school, land an internship at NASA. And
Mm.
so it was this little apprenticeship for about 10 weeks, went out to Marshall Space Flight Center, and I got to see everything. My eyes were open. It's like,
Wow.
man, engineering is a pretty expansive career field. And it also had elements that I enjoyed, right? It had the creativity, it had the math and the science, which I never really had much of a problem with. And it
Hmm.
had like just a number of things that I was like, I can see myself doing this. I can see myself doing this. And so that was really like what hooked me into engineering. When it came to structural engineering and civil in particular, that's where my desire to be interfacing with people came in as well, right? Because you got engineering jobs or careers where you can spend your entire day behind the computer. There's some where you can spend your entire day, not interacting with people. And so I wanted to really see or have an impact on the lives. I'm not saying that it's the only one, but
Right.
because civil engineering has such an impact, infrastructure is such an embedded part of our society, I really wanted to have that aspect. And so that's when I started veering towards, structures, bridge design, things of that nature.
Gotcha. Man, that's amazing. It's funny, I feel like we kind of got exposed to engineering in a similar way, like being exposed to it before college and kind of had
Yeah.
an idea like, that looks interesting. Like for me, I saw it a little bit in high school where you had like the technical classes you could take where they were like in our school system in Georgia, they have a thing where you can have like the regular degree or the dual seal degree. So you can have
Mm-hmm.
like a technical education where you do like videography, um, uh,
Like
or the
other
stuff.
other technical
Yeah,
skills.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like either videography, uh, t-shirt graphic design. That's what it
Okay.
is.
There you go.
Woodworking, um, things that you can do with robotics in a sense, or we had it to where people could make like they had the 3D printers back in the day where it's like you could make a race car out of it, or
Yeah.
you learn how to use Rivet, AutoCAD,
Yeah.
Inventor, all those like design softwares, and being able to create something on a computer and then have it kind of made in real life was very, it was interesting. And like you say, taking the math that didn't come into it right at the fact, but just
Right.
being able to have fun at school was something that kind of drew me to engineering too. I was like, okay, we can do this. And
Totally. Totally. Seeing an idea come to life is
yeah,
something just wonderful about that experience. Yeah.
that's awesome. And the other thing that I've been impressed by you, like seeing you from a distance, like I think one of the things that caught my attention with STEMedia was like seeing the logo. And I think
Yeah.
maybe I told you one time I was like, I remember it's either our senior year or something, we were trying to come up with a t-shirt design. They put the idea out. Somebody came up with a design and it wasn't like the best looking thing, but that person tried and everybody else that didn't try was like critiquing it like, oh, you should have done this, you should have done
Yeah,
that. It's like,
man.
where were you at when I was
Well,
putting this?
right when we were
Yeah,
creating it, like you know what I
right.
mean. Like it's anybody can critique, not everybody can create. Nah. Well, I thank you, man. You can see it in the back. Now I just want the viewers to know that this is flipped right now, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
but that's the STEM Media logo. I believe you're referring to. But yeah, man, it was an original idea of mine. I had like when I started the company, I was in grad school, and I wanted an outlet to creatively inspire people.
Mm,
Again, utilizing some of my other gifts outside of the lab, outside of the classroom,
right.
public speaking, videography, even music, right? And
Yeah.
so STEM media was my early idea of what they call STEAM now, really. Science,
Mm,
technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it wasn't really STEAM, but I was like, all right, if I can combine the media, which is a means of communication, with
mm,
STEM, which I was aware of, I'll get STEM media. So using these mathematical symbols, the integral sound, the
yeah.
tau, which we use for a number of things, including shear stress in
Mm,
engineering,
yep. Yep.
sigma, which we use for strain, right? We use like for a couple of things. And then the M, right? M is also used for moments and things like that inside of engineering specifically. And so, yeah, there's just that embedded reference there in the logo. So I appreciate you picked up that on that, man. Not everybody pick up on that. You got to
Right.
know a thing or two about it
Right.
and pick up on it.
It's funny because I guess when I pick up on it, I went the route of like go to school and I enjoyed the coursework so much, but I felt like I was getting so much theory. And then I
Yeah,
went out and I spent maybe like a good 6 years out of college doing um, construction work. So I've
got you.
focused a little bit more on the application, again, being
Mm-hmm.
able to deal with people and not just sitting there doing 11 pages of homework to solve one problem that you later find out you can just hit a button on a computer and in 11 seconds it solves it. And it's
It
like,
runs it for you. Boom.
right.
Yeah.
It's like, did I just waste my life? But, but,
Yeah.
um, being able to pick up on that, I guess it's like the intellectual side of me or the nerd side of me that I
Yeah,
can
man.
still appreciate. So like I've been flirting with the idea of, do I need to go back and do my PE license? But
Okay.
as I've been working on doing the podcast, have you seen, as you mentioned, and like kind of coming into my own and identifying who I am, like
Mm-hmm.
this, like you had before, having that creative outlet. I felt
Yeah.
like I needed to create this and do a lot of personal work and personal development to understand, like, okay, this is how I exist outside of a job title and
Yeah.
outside of like that. So whenever you
Purpose.
mention like having the A in there for the arts, that that's it's not uncommon, but it's something that I appreciate seeing it from your perspective where
Hmm.
art was something that you valued. Like I didn't know this about you before, but I saw you posted something where um you did theater before, like you
I
acted
did.
before, and
Right.
that was something where the people that I saw do best in engineering, they had those creative outlets where they could interact, and it's not just like the pocket protector nerd where it's just like you
Yeah.
don't have a life, you don't have anything. It's like you made you found a way to like make a life within what other people might be like, oh, like an engineer, what's that? What's that
Yeah.
mean? Or what, like, what does that look like? And you guys came out with this is what STEM looks like.
This is
Sure.
what you got a shirt, man. So shout out to you for supporting that. Yeah, it's all about that, man. I think STEM media was intentionally created to show that image because I knew I was that type of person and I knew I wasn't the only one. But, by looking around my classroom, going to school, I didn't see many people that like I identified with in a lot of ways.
Mm,
And, it almost felt like people were trying to fit the mold of what an engineer looks like as opposed to being themselves as an engineer.
right.
And things have changed honestly lately since I started the company STEMedia to now.
Hmm.
We've seen just so many people. The numbers statistically still have a long way to go, but I've been able to identify so many people who are, unapologetically into dance,
Mm,
unapologetically into acting, theater, unapologetically black, right? Or
yeah.
Latinx, right? Unapologetically who they are. And but yet and still have that technical intelligence that is necessary to solve, a lot of our grand challenges. And so
Mm,
STEM media is really on a mission to elevate and empower traditionally underrepresented people in STEM, right?
mm,
Particularly, and to do so in a way that presents personal development, which you talked about earlier, that presents mentorships and advice, that presents events and videos and courses even in a
yeah.
non-traditional form that allows someone to really tap into their genius, right? And so when we
Right.
talk about genius, I'll even say that one sign or one element of genius, in my opinion, is being able to find the connection between the seemingly unrelated, right? Like, how can I view this mathematical concept as a role I'm playing on stage, right?
Mm,
Or how can I understand this trigonomic function or this trigonomic theorem or whatever, right? As a even spiritual principle that I believe in my faith, right? Like, how
yeah.
can I find these connections and being able to see those connections do a number of things? One, it helps to simplify it in terms of learning it. Like, it sticks in my mind much better.
Hmm.
But the other thing it does, it allows you to see greater possibilities when it comes to innovation,
Right.
right? So that's just one of the elements I believe that is of genius. And so one of the early taglines of STEM media was when technical intelligence meet creative genius, right?
Mm,
That's where great things happen. So yeah, I resonate with that very, very strongly.
man, I like that. I like that. The uh so you started STEM media in grad school
Yes, sir.
and you've been doing it since. So how many years is that?
Man, we're talking about 8, 9 years now.
Nice.
2012, I was a PhD student. It started as me entering into a video contest
Mm,
that was designed to inspire engineering students to stay with it.
hmm.
It was a national engineering video contest. And I said, oh, it's a video contest. Here's an opportunity for me to combine the two, right?
Right.
Combine what I did on stage and my creative way of presenting stories with engineering. And a lot of people in the contest did like talking head videos, which,
Yeah.
there's a place for that. And they just kind of say, hey, I'm doing engineering. Here's why I'm da 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 da.
Right.
I was like, no, Asher, this is what I'm about to do. I'm about to make a Nike. I'm about to make a Gatorade commercial for engineering. Like, I'm about to make a Nike just do it
Yeah.
engineering. You know what I mean? And like literally, I was the only one that I know of in that contest that had anything like. No, I know that for a fact because they had finalists, and I was the
Right.
only one that wasn't like a talking head.
Mm,
Um, and now you see stuff like this all the time, but that
right.
was like sort of the uh my edge and
Yeah.
it got the attention. So I won that contest. It was like on MTV. They played it on MTV. Facebook got a
Awesome.
hold of it. Intel was actually the driving sponsor. And yeah, from there on, it was just like, let me keep doing this.
Right.
And then other people start asking, can you help me do this for my after school program or for my class? Like,
Mm,
and so it just kind of grew from there.
that's amazing. I, I guess I'm curious, how did you find time like with engineering work to do like to continue being creative to be in like because I'm guessing you were in clubs, like did you
Yeah.
participate in fraternities or just like the American Societies of Engineering group, like those different things? Like
Yeah, I
how
was
did you
in
fit that
Nesby.
in? Okay.
Yeah, National Society of Black Engineers.
Yeah.
I didn't pledge any fraternities actually,
Okay.
but I was in like other student organizations. I did intramurals,
Yep.
sports,
Yep.
right? And then of course, then there's I go to church every Saturday, so Saturdays were also my day of rest. Never worked on those days, and so it really was like a flexible kind of thing. And honestly, man, before you're married and with kids, you can kind of like flex your time a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so I really took advantage of that. I remember in grad school, it was one of those things where I didn't want to give my advisor the impression that I wasn't serious about my research.
Hmm.
And so like I kind of had to keep it covert. Maybe
Mm.
I didn't have to, but I felt like I had to
Right.
for a while, running and doing the event and then going to the lab. And then some days I would go into the lab late because
Yeah.
I was editing the video or whatever it may be. But yeah, just over time, man, it was helpful that after I got married, my wife is very, very supportive. And so she's been able to really support when it comes to like flexing time with, our daughters and things like that. And then
Mm.
there's just, it's one of those things where it's like, it's never easy, right? So if you're expecting life to just kind of, here you go,
Right.
that's not going to happen. But, that drive and that passion is really what causes you to have to find the time and the energy and the resources needed to continue something.
Awesome. Man. The um I like how you said that and how you tied that up, but I like it more so coming from you because it's one thing to say something, but it's another thing to actually be able to do it and put it
Mm-hmm.
in practice, make it practical because it's like um for some reason I just thought back to a time it was my last year of college and I was getting ready to graduate and I think we were taking a class together with um like one of those classes that you can take with underclassmen. And
Yeah.
one person asked me once, she's like, "Man, this is hard." It's like, "Does it get any easier?" And I was like, "To tell you the truth, no, it
No.
gets harder, but
Right.
you like it more because you learn to enjoy the things that you're doing. You get to
Yeah.
have more of the you learn to appreciate what you're doing because you're like, "Oh, no, this is what I signed up for." Like we got all the
Right.
basic stuff out of the way, but now it's like I'm focusing on what matters to me. If you're environmental, you're taking those air pollution courses, you're figuring out maybe even getting out into the field, you're trying to get
Right.
an internship and okay, now this is what we said in the classroom, but here's how it actually works in practice.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, you're a bridge engineer, correct?
Yeah. Bridge design. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So you both design and inspect them.
Design, inspect, analyze is a big
Mm,
part of it too.
gotcha.
So yeah.
That's amazing. That
Yeah.
is that is that something you wanted to do like from the get-go, or is that something that as you looked into it, you're like, I can work with that.
Yeah. That not from the get go, but as I learned more, because again, like when I first was like engineering, okay, I learned what that was. Did NASA? I was in
Mm,
aerospace engineering. Then I said, okay, I
mm,
want to be something that I can at least drive by and point to and see how it's impacting society and people's lives. So
right.
civil engineering is where I went. But I was thinking architectural engineering still. I was thinking like, okay, buildings.
Mm,
It didn't really cross my mind until later on, until I got into my research. Really, I would say in my PhD program,
mm,
that bridges was a huge part. And now it was like night and day. It's always
wow.
been night and day, but I just didn't see it as night and day. Like a career in designing buildings
Yeah.
is actually quite different than the career in designing bridges.
Mm,
And I went the bridge route because we call bridges like horizontal structures.
yeah.
right? And we call buildings vertical structures.
Right.
And we
Right.
have totally different sets of like codes and regulations that really govern it. We're looking at vehicles, right? Trucks and stuff. Those are our our weights and our loads. Buildings are looking at a random AC unit or like people, right? Or
Right.
furniture, right? They're just different things that we're considering. But nevertheless, the principles are the same, right? The principles are the same.
Right.
Choosing material, choosing a geometric shape of that material
Hmm.
that is properly designed or properly situated so that it can resist whatever weight and loads that the building is going to have to experience or the bridge is going to have to experience. So that's the concepts are the same, but to be very honest with you, in practice, we use two different softwares. Like it's just
Right.
really two different career paths. And it seems like night and day to me now that I'm in it.
Yeah. I, I guess that's the thing where whenever you first mentioned the NASA internship, I was like, cool, but then I was like, something's not clicking. It's like, okay, you went aerospace first, and then you
Yeah.
gravitated towards civil engineering. That makes
Yes,
sense.
yes.
Gotcha.
And my degrees were always in civil. Even when I was doing NASA,
Hmm.
I was studying civil engineering.
Hmm.
Um, but what happened was the technology, the type of research
Yeah.
that was applied to aerospace structures
Hmm.
could also be applied to civil structures. And so when I decided to go and get a PhD,
Hmm.
I intentionally looked for a program and engaged myself in research
Hmm.
that applied similar technologies from the aerospace industry
Yeah.
to bridges.
Okay.
And so that's how I got further along because aerospace, if I'm just being honest, particularly NASA space
Yeah.
exploration, they're usually on the cutting edge. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things people don't really realize. Like they're really doing things to try to like, go where no man has gone before
Right.
that we haven't even gotten to yet when it comes to designing bridges or buildings. Right. And so we
Right.
eventually like
Right.
catch up. And so I kind of felt like I was ahead of the curve because I'm over here studying NASA technology. And then
Right.
I'm coming here and hey, let me tell y'all something in civil. You know what? We can put this on bridge, and they're like, oh, okay. It didn't exactly go like that, but it's
Right.
like it's not as matured in this industry as it is in that industry, and
Right.
that really gave me room to really carve out my space as a doctoral student.
Gotcha. That that makes sense because I heard excuse my voice. The
You get
one of the how do you say it, like VP top dog managers in the company that I work with before I think I left 2019, like summer 2019. But one of the top guys, he'd come by because we did like an acquisition and they came from the other company. Basically, I think they basically bought us out, but we were like, oh, it's a merger.
uh-huh.
But anyway, anyways, one of the things that he said was like a big thing in construction or like civil engineering for that matter is that like the technology is very like backwards, or it's like
Yeah.
obviously you see an iPhone or you see like anything in aerospace or anything that's like mechanically made, it's more advanced than what it is that you'd see with like steel, concrete,
Yeah. That's
rebar. Like we use
that's
like the
facts.
basic wood, of course, masonry, but do you think it has anything to do with like the type of people in the industry, whether they be the people that are working to do the job or the people in leadership, where it's like, are they not willing to accept the new technology, or is it's not really necessary for what's being done?
That is a really good thought provoking question. And I'm glad you asked it because I can explore that a little bit. So innovation moves very, very slowly in civil engineering. And the reason why is because everything we built is a prototype. Like the bridge you build, it's not like you can build a bridge, test it, build another bridge, test it, just keep building bridges to test it. No,
Hmm.
literally, your first one that you build is the prototype. And guess what? It's also the one that you're going to be using. So there's a lot of, and here's one of the biggest factors, there's a lot of regulation that goes into making sure that thing is safe for the public. And
Right.
so, in order to make sure it's safe for the public, people are going to be inclined to use things that we already know to be tried and true. Like, can you believe it? There was a time not that long ago, decades wise, where steel, people were afraid to build bridges out of steel because it was new,
Hmm.
right? Like, no, man, I don't know about steel. These stones are working pretty good right now, right?
Right.
And so it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we need to build a bridge. are we going, and we know that this bridge carries this much traffic a day. Are we going to go with steel and concrete, which we've seen work for years and years and years and years? Or we're going to go for this new material that it could be lighter, it could be stronger, who knows? But who's going to take that risk? Not me, you know? So it's almost like the industry itself lends itself for people to stay more conservative in their approaches to things. And then there's really no penalty for
Right.
playing it safe, right? You still get the job, you still get the contract, you still get paid. And so that, I feel as though, creates a more conservatively minded person, because at the end of the day, the last thing we want is what happened down in Miami to be for our design.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so innovation moves very, very slowly. It takes a few brave people to try it on some small stuff here and there,
Yeah.
But people don't gain confidence until like several decades, to be honest with you,
True.
with a certain approach, certain technology. And so that's what it is, I would say. It's just it's not it's not as rewarding to a person to try to be innovative as would, like, say, consumer electronics would be.
Right,
you
right.
definitely, you about to get most of the money if you can come out with the best iPhone. Everybody's
Right.
like, yo, let's do it. Even if the joint catch on fire a few times, you can make a couple of more or tweak it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Just
a
like,
bridge
just send
fall
them all
down?
back. We'll send you new ones. No problem.
Oh man, exactly. Let a bridge fall down. Oh, that's your career.
Right.
Like, boom, it's a wrap. It may be the end of the company as you know it. You know what I mean? So
Right. That's a great point. Like, one thing, a friend of mine that I work with for about, I think, 4 years. He was there 5 years at the nuclear project in East Georgia, in Augusta. It's around Augusta, Georgia. I
okay.
think that project is wrapping up now, but I interviewed him earlier on episode 42, and one of the things that he developed in his company, Alpha Omega, I'm gonna mess up the name, but um, one of the things that he developed with his team is something called lead lock. And
Yeah.
you would think this would have already been made, but sometimes it's not like this big thing that you have to make, but something small and simple. And essentially what it is, it's like a locking mechanism. I think they may have something, if you go in like Home Depot, where you could lock the ends of electrical wires, but this, essentially, you use it for leads, which are like the plugins that you use to weld. And the the reason why it's important, why it's valuable, is that a lot of times on these big projects where you've got to string cords, extension cords, welding lines, air hoses, different things like that, you've got to stretch these things out for over like hundreds of yards, sometimes even 1,000 yards. If it's like a long distance, you've got a confined space you have to work in.
Yeah.
So other teams, they might find it more convenient to use your stuff that you've neatly organized instead of getting theirs.
Their own.
So, right, instead of getting their own, or instead of taking the 1 hour or 3 hours that it took you to do that.
Yeah.
So what this does, it allows you to lock in place your lead. Once it's like you join it here, you put a lock on it with a combination to where nobody else can come there and cut your leads apart. So that way it would save you hours from having to walk around every single day, because there's maybe like minimum 3 hours a day spent out of a 10, 12-hour workday chasing down lead
Just
wires.
sourcing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like easily millions of dollars throughout the year that the company, the client, could be saving. And like, I I'll have to check in with him now and see how things are post COVID, because they literally launched it at the start of the pandemic, and it was like, oh crap, that we couldn't have really planned that any worse. But it's
Right.
like, now we have the opportunity of sitting in front of people. And I was like, wow, it's something amazing to see that an idea came out of a pain point that you were able to witness, um, from a supervisor's perspective, working with guys in the field for 5 years at a time. And you're constantly having this complaint of like, hey, every time I go to do my job, I've got somebody else taking my stuff. Is there any way to keep it where I left it? And
Mm-hmm.
them coming up with that, seeing the application of it, they've got videos and things like that on their website. It's like, wow, okay, it's possible. like to your point, but it it requires like the
More.
willingness to be able to
Yeah.
say like, okay, we're not taking like a quantum leap, but like
Yeah.
we're making a little step that's going to make a huge difference. Like, you want to save money? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I want I don't want to have this much money wasted here because guys are not working like the 4 hours that you can actually get out of the workday. But it's
Yeah.
like that was something amazing. I thought you might appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense though. Elite locking is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and sorry about that. But
No, no,
yeah,
I
it's
get it.
still I'm still dealing with it a little bit, but something I told myself even doing like in doing the podcast and wanting to stay consistent, find a way to um say yes to the things that are like a necessity in life. It's like
Yeah.
just finding a way to power through. And even today, just doing the daily read, I was like, it might be late in the day, but do it, edit it, put it out, just to
Yeah.
let myself know this is getting done and that's important. But before I let you go, I've got two questions to ask. What's something that you gained from 2020?
Oh, great question. What did I gain for 2020? Well, one thing I gained for sure was a reminder, refocus, recommitment to my calling, my vision. The thing is, man, you can get an idea, you can feel very called to doing something. For me, it was taking STEMedia to the next level, right? Making engineering something that I began to do more as an on-call part-time basis and really start focusing on inspiring people beyond just my career, people who are like me out there, right? And I knew I wanted to do that for a while. However, you can get comfortable, right? You can get comfortable whether it's the paycheck, whether it's the routine, whether it's just the fact that you know how to do what you're currently doing. And I don't know how to do the thing that I know I'm supposed to be doing. All that, man, starts to like get you sedentary, and it got me sedentary. And it wasn't until things got shaken up a bit in 2020, the working from home. And I tell you this, Asher, when people were talking about how bored they were, that wasn't the case for me, man. We were doing the most work I had ever done. I'm talking about 60 plus hours a week from home. And then at home, you don't have an excuse like, oh, I got to go home. I don't have access. No, no, you have access. So I'm literally working through the night on certain things. I don't know if you noticed, but construction projects actually accelerated a little bit because people weren't driving, people weren't doing things. And I wasn't working on a brand new project, but what I was doing was a lot of like analysis and load rating of bridges.
Mhm.
And so all that, man, I'm talking about all through the night. And I'm like, this is not it. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it got me just rethinking about, what my career goals were. What are the things I want to accomplish? And so I gained a refocus
Mm.
to what my career vision and goal was. So that's one thing without a doubt. The
Awesome.
second thing I would say that I gained from 2020 is an appreciation. I'm still gaining this, to be honest with you, appreciation for rest, right? Because you're working hard, but rest is very, very important. And I think we're starting to come to our senses now a little bit that like nobody can go nonstop 24/7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can go pretty hard, and I think you do when you're pursuing something, but
Mhm.
24/7 nonstop working, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
If it's possible, it's only possible for a very short time. And
Mhm.
so I've learned that it is important for you to take time to rest, take time, spend time with family. It is time possible to, even on the days of rest, to not try to do too much,
Yeah.
right? There's just things like that became more and more clear for me, particularly throughout this last, year and a half of COVID,
Yeah.
So that's something I would say.
Awesome. Man, that's amazing, Doc. Like,
Yeah.
whew, I think that rest is so essential. That's been my one thing, my one focus for this year has just been like if there's anything that's going to interrupt my rest, it's got to go. It's like you got to cut
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
let people know where they can find you and how they can support the STEM media movement.
Absolutely. So me, NehemiahMabry.com. You can check me out. I definitely take inquiries, for speaking engagements. I do a number of those things. But STEMedia in particular, we have STEMedia, STEMedia, just like that, but only backwards. .org, which tells us you about the organization. And then STEMedia.com is actually our beta streaming platform. So we have a streaming platform where we offer webinars, on-demand video, courses, podcasts like this great one right here that allow you to learn more about different STEM fields, empower you with guidance and insight and advice to better pursue your goals, as well as just opportunity to build a community and network with other people in a similar situation as you. So I would encourage people to go there, sign up. It's a 30-day free trial, become a part of our community. And that's what I'll leave. Social media, of course, we're on there. Just type in the name, but that's what I'll stop with right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate this time to catch up with you, and I'll definitely be in touch because I feel like I need to either ask you for a consultation or just spend a little bit more time catching up. I'll see about being on the prayer line tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Asher. Again, like I know this has been something we touched bases about a while ago, but I'm so glad we finally get to make it happen. And man, thank you for just following up too. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
This is the It's My Time podcast with Asher Tchoua.